Welcome to Context, where we delve deep into the political flashpoints shaping our world today. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and on this edition we focus on the escalating diplomatic standoff in the Middle East. Recently, Hamas officially rejected the latest Israeli truce proposal, dashing hopes for a near-term ceasefire. At the same time, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized French President Emmanuel Macron over recent comments regarding Palestinian statehood and Israeli conduct in Gaza. To dissect these developments and the broader geopolitical fallout, we are joined by Mr. Nir Bams, a political analyst based in Jerusalem. Mr. Bams, thank you for being here with us on A News.
Good to be here.
So let's begin our discussion. Mr. Bams, how do you think, what are the core reasons Hamas cited for rejecting the most recent Israeli truce proposal?
Well, I believe this is a part of the negotiation round, this current one, a negotiation technique as well. And I think that what Hamas is saying to us is that they would not like to accept some of the terms. And for them, the idea that Hamas eventually is going to disarm, as they said, this is a surrender agreement. This is not something that they wish to do. However, this is also can be seen as a negotiation round or negotiation technique, because at some point there's going to be an understanding that Hamas will either need to leave in a relative peace or an agreement, or that they will have to leave with kinetic and military actions, because this is something that Israel is most probably going to insist upon.
So, from an Israeli perspective, how serious was this truce offer, and was it meant for more international optics or actual conflict de-escalation?
I think that Israel is following this negotiation rounds. There is lots of pressure on the ground here to create an agreement, and an agreement that will, on the one hand, bring all the hostages home and end the war, but on the other hand, that will guarantee a different reality in Gaza. And I think, as we've seen in Gaza, with the demonstrations, the tens of thousands of people who came into the streets, it's important to secure a different future in Gaza. And I think it's very clear, not just to us, but also to all the partners, the negotiators, the Egyptian offer that was just put on the table, that Hamas cannot be a part of the solution in the future.
So, Mr. Bams, why was Benjamin Netanyahu so sharply critical of Macron's recent remarks about Palestinian rights and Israel's Gaza strategy?
Well, I don't think that Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Macron see the situation or see the reality eye to eye. Mr. Macron's statements on recognizing a Palestinian state received a cold shoulder from Israel, because Israel is saying that this is not the time to think about Palestinian statehood. In Gaza, that's not going to help to bring the negotiations to the end. Palestine or so is divided. Hamas has taken a part of it in Gaza from the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is considered very weak in the West Bank as well. They're not able to control their own territory, and it's very difficult to see them controlling other territories. And therefore, all of this is not helping the current round of negotiations, and that's the Israeli position. Mr. Macron said, well, this is the time to move forward with recognition, something that we've heard before. I would even say we've heard this before for almost 3 decades. And I think it wasn't done so far because there was also a realization that that recognition is not necessarily going to solve the problems moving forward.
So, Nir, how are other regional players such as Egypt, Qatar and Jordan reacting to the breakdown in truce talks?
The regional players are actually very much a part of it, and the Egyptians just put another proposal on the table. One of the components in the Egyptians' proposal was a request that Hamas will de-arm, and there's going to be a different arrangement in that will bring the end of Hamas rule in Gaza, but will create an Arab mechanism that eventually could bring revitalization of the Palestinian struggle for statehood. I think that the regional partners, and I would even say that Israel would like to see an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't think that conflict is the goal here. The Gaza war, certainly the recent one, as well as the previous one, were forced upon Israel. This is not something that Israel initiated, or something that Israel wanted to be involved with. We would love to see a reality in where we are able to live in peace with our neighbors. And part of this, I think, at this point, is making sure that groups like Hamas, who are supported with countries like Iran, are not going to be in the lead, because that's going to lead to war, not to peace.
So is there growing domestic pressure within Israel, especially from hostage families, for Netanyahu to accept more compromise?
There is a very complicated discourse in Israel, and an important discussion about the future of this war and the conduct of this war. All of us would like to see the hostages back. 59 remain, not all of them are alive. We are seeing the videos coming from Gaza. We know how they suffer. We speak with the hostages that came back from Gaza, and they tell us horrible stories. And for us, for all of us, and certainly for so many Israelis who march into the streets and go there now almost for 2 years with this is an issue of utmost importance. At the same token, we also understand that bringing this home cannot be done in every price. And if the price will be that Hamas will remain in power and we're going to have another war and maybe another October 7, 10 years down the road, that may not be the ultimate solution. And between this, there are pressures. So there's pressures on Netanyahu and his government to have an agreement, and some would say almost at every price. And the other part is, well, we need to have an agreement that will actually sort the problem. And I think the regional players are trying to do their best to help, because they would not like to see the continuation of this conflict. But it's clear to them that irrespective of what agreement eventually will be reached, we need to see a different future in Gaza, and that future cannot be led by Hamas.
So, Mr. Baums, how are Israeli and Palestinian media outlets portraying the truce failure and Macron's remarks? Are narratives diverging sharply?
Well, this issue was obviously highlighted here partially because Netanyahu's son, Yair Netanyahu, made an even more blatant criticism of addressed the President Macron using the F word on Twitter, something that led Netanyahu to issue a sort of an apology of the style and a call that was initiated, and he actually spoke with Macron about all of this. But we need to understand that the calls for Palestinian state have been there for the past 30 years. At some point, there may be a time to create also recognize a Palestinian state, but it's going to be better that that recognition is going to be achieved with an agreed upon framework and negotiations. Otherwise, what we will see is again another attempt to create a diplomatic move that does not yield any result, and especially if that move is considered as something that can strengthen Hamas's position in Gaza, then that's something that's going to be perceived very negatively, not just in Israel, but also amongst the regional partners, and I think amongst the majority of the Palestinians from Gaza, who would like to see their own freedom, who would like to see the end of the war, and they understand that the only way to do that is to make sure that Hamas is not there.
So, Mr. Baums, is there any movement within the Israeli political establishment toward a broader re-evaluation of the Gaza strategy?
I think there is an ongoing movement and attempts to create different pathways. I think the new American administration has brought a number of ideas into the table, but the reality on the ground is still difficult. While Hamas continues to shoot and continues to indicate that they would like to hold into the Gaza Strip, we actually have a stalemate. We need to find a way that Hamas will be able to either leave in a negotiated agreement or in a non-negotiated agreement, and we need to have the regional partners play a more active role in actually offering an alternative that will include some involvement and even intervention on the ground. Otherwise, it's going to be left for Israel to do it, and that's not necessarily the scenario that the majority of people would like to see. So part of this is really ongoing. The political configuration of this government, I would say, does not make it easy, because this government adopts a position that are sometimes perceived non-compromising and so somewhat conservative, because that's the composition of this government, and we've been at it for quite some time. And of course, time is running out for the people in Gaza that are still living in tents, and there's not the possibility to really create a process of reconstruction, certainly for the hostages that are there for 18 months, and all of that continues to occupy the headlines, not only in Israel, but apparently also in Azerbaijan.
So that brings us to the end of this edition of Context. A heartfelt thanks to our guest, Mr. Bams in Jerusalem, for sharing his insights on these unfolding and deeply complex events. Mr. Bams, thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much. As the region grapples with renewed tensions and the international community weighs in, we will continue to track every development. I'm Bakhtar Sanov. Stay informed, and thank you for watching A News. Until next time.